Call this meeting to order. First, approve the agenda.
What is the logic for the operation conceal and carry to be an executive session?
Because it's a security mechanism that we're using to help, or that we're thinking about doing for security of our guys. So we obviously don't want the public to know that. Just like security thing, the measures that we took up front, we would not want folks to know what we're doing for security.
I spoke with you, Brent, about or emailed you about that. Can we move some sort of vote or anything on that until next month?
I guess what makes you believe that you guys would vote on that?
Needs action.
That just means eventually at some point in time, it has to need action.
Okay.
It doesn't mean deny. That's up to you all.
I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Agenda. First. Seconds. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same. Work with the agenda. The next topic is a cool moment. We have Claire Spreckleson with us this evening. She participated in the youth tour, Washington DC, so she's going to spend a few minutes with us, going over her trip. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah,
Right, left.
thank you. Okay, so like you said, I'm Claire Spreckleson. You guys so graciously funded me to go to DC. It's great, but I'll get to that here in a minute. So, okay. We started out in Carmel at the event center that they have there. And they just told us a little bit about what we're doing, rules. We met chaperones. And one of my chaperones was really cool. She works down in Osgood, Indiana. So she's kind of closer, right in the middle of everybody, but still, she was cool because I actually knew her and I didn't know anybody else. You guys didn't come and chaperone. So. Anyway, so then we made our departure to Richmond, spent the night there. We got up bright and early and we left, and it was a huge travel day. We stopped once in Ohio. I think it was like Clairsville, Ohio. We ate lunch there. Bonding moment with my bus. You know, we had like bus 1 and 2. Crazy. So a lot of card games on there. So yeah, it was really fun to meet those new people. Then our first stop of the trip was the Flight 93 Memorial. And throughout this presentation, I'll probably tell you that I just love history. So I love learning about like 9/11, World War II. Those are my like 2 favorite topics. I know it's kind of weird, but I love history. So I had been there before with my family when we went to Pennsylvania to see my cousins. But we didn't go down to the crash site, so I got to see that. And that was really cool. For the people there, the victims, they all had like big stones, from the stone they put in Arlington. And it's the only memorial that uses that stone from Arlington because they were thought of as heroes. And so they use that stone like they do in Arlington for them. And they were all separate stones. It was kind of like a wall, but if you went to the very end of the wall, it like looked like they were one. And so it was meant they were all like separate people, but they all were one cause to try and get that plane down. And they were all united. So that was really cool, the meaning of the wall for me. And we went to the Tower of Voices, and that just has like 40 chimes for the victims. And that was really cool to listen to. And then that night we got into Gettysburg, and that's a picture of me and my roommate. She lives in Salem, Indiana, and I have an aunt who lives in Salem. So I met up with her last week when I was seeing my aunt. So that was really cool to see her. So yeah. Then the next day we were in Gettysburg. We had a tour guide. He mainly told us like major events that happened in the battle. Great guy, Phil. We loved him on bus too. And then this picture up here is of like the Indiana Memorial for the soldiers there. And then we finally got into DC and we visited Martin Luther King Jr., his memorial, and then Franklin Roosevelt's memorial, and his was really cool. He did a lot for our nature in the United States along with Teddy Roosevelt. But he had like a whole bunch of trees at his memorial, and so it was all kind of shaded. And you'll see like one of the quotes from his memorial on there I thought was really cool. You might not be able to read it because of the light. It was really cool to see his. And then we went to the Jefferson Memorial, and there were a ton of people there. And he had some cool quotes on his wall as well. I like quotes as well, if you can't tell. Mean a lot to me. So anyway, so that was our first day in DC. And then the 19th, we went to Mount Vernon, which was great. George Washington had a great view of the Potomac River. Wow, that was really beautiful. And his gardens were really cool. This is a picture of the gardens. And then his home. We didn't get to go in the home, but it was still really cool to see. I saw the tombs. I saw the wharf down there. I think it's what it's called. So that was really neat. And then after, we went to the Marine Corps Museum. And this is the outside of it right here, the very top. And that's meant like they designed it to look like the Iwo Jima. That statue, so you can kind of see like that pole would be the flag and then the men standing up the flag. So that was pretty cool. And then let's see, over here, this was a guy in the museum, and it was made from like little toy soldiers, you know, some guys in little tanks. And so it was made out of that, and he has like a gun raised. I thought that was really cool. So I got a picture of that. And then a group of girls and I, we went on the walking trails that they had around the museum. And at the picture very top to the right, those are of the Twin Towers. And that was really cool to see because I'm in the generation that is after 9/11. So I didn't, you know, it doesn't mean as much to me as it does you guys. But still, it was really, really cool to see those. And we were able to touch them. It was really, really neat because I haven't been to New York to see that spot. So that was really cool. We saw a ton more things on those walking paths. They had it really cool out there. And then we were coming back to meet up, and we got to take a picture with some Marines that were outside of the museum. So that was really cool just to see those. And then we didn't have much the rest of the day. We came back, had a day night. So that was really cool. A big bonding moment for everybody. June 20th, we had our National Youth Rally Day. There was a guy from Indiana who came to speak with us. He was from West Lafayette, and he went to Guatemala to put in electric down there. And so that was really cool. He was actually from Indiana. We were screaming, yelling. It was great as they introduced him. And I really like to learn what you guys do for not just the United States, but outside in the world. So that was really cool because I didn't know you guys did that. So it was really cool to hear from him. And then our speaker was really good. None of us could remember his name after, but it was Mike something. And he was in the Olympics in the 1990s and early 2000s. As basketball, Paralympics. Great guy. Told us a story. His main thing was like, what holds you back? Because he got shot in the back by his friend. So his bullet was holding him back. And it was really motivational. We loved him. We talked about him the whole trip, brought up his theme the whole trip. So we left a little early from that to go to the Holocaust Museum. And that was really great. Part of my World War II. Loved it. That was great. We were in the elevator going up, And the guy's pressing the button. He's like, now this will take about 2.5, 3 hours to walk through. We had an hour, maybe an hour and a half to walk through it. So I'm snapping all these pictures to read because they had big articles on the walls to read. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time. So I took pictures of those and read them when we got back to the hotel. But it was great. And then down here, they have like a memorial room. And my mom and I have been to Europe, and we went to Germany and saw Dachau, one of the first concentration camps built. And so I got a picture of that for her, and they mentioned like all the concentration camps in the memorial room. So I took that picture because that meant something to me. I was there, and then we went to the Smithsonian. We went first to the National Archives, and it was really scary because there were a lot of guards in there, and we had to go through security, and I always think that they're gonna beep me, and yeah, not good. I don't like it. But then we went to the Museum of Natural History, and I love that because it's real naturey. And so they had huge, like, big statues of animals and stuff in there, like safari, oceans, fossils, and then they had like the origin of humans in there too, and they had weird skulls. So it was really cool to go in there and look at that. And then we did our memorial walk, our second memorial walk, and we saw Lincoln. And then the far picture down on the bottom is of me. That's where Martin Luther King Jr. stood to speak for his I Have a Dream speech. So that was really cool to stand there and see like what he saw. Really neat. And then we went to the Vietnam Memorial. And there was a guy in my group that I was with who had like a cousin who was in the Vietnam War. And so we found his name on the wall. Really cool. Then we went to the Korean Memorial. And that was odd. They had like men in like trench coats walking across this little grassy area. I don't know, odd, but it was neat. And then we went to the World War II Memorial, and our chaperone group got a picture in front of the Indiana spot, and so that was neat to be there. And then June 21st, we were at Capitol Hill. That was a big day to see congressmen. And so our first stop was the Library of Congress, and I love to read, and so this was great. Just to see a huge library and kind of the biggest one, I think, in the US. And so it really reminded me a lot of Europe because it had tons of paintings on the ceilings. And so that's what you have a lot in Europe. So that was really cool. And they all use the same stone in DC. It's like this limestone. I don't know, some stone that's all you see in DC. So I don't know. It's weird. All the buildings look the same. But I know it's the architecture that they were going for. So over here, this was Jefferson's Library. That's me kind of in the middle of the library. That's the main library right there. We couldn't go into it, but it was still really cool to get like an overhead view of it. This was the outside, and this was just the big room that we saw. Then we went to the Capitol Hill. We sat in a room, waited for like 2 or 3 hours, and then our first congressman started showing up. And we were gonna have Greg Pence come in, but he, I think, had heart problems that day, so he did not come in. I agree with him. But still, we got to hear from like 3 or 4 great congressmen. I think Mike Braun was probably the best that I heard. He was just really cool, and he talked to us like as we were like actually adults. The others just kind of got into too much politics for me. You know, I didn't really enjoy it as much, but Mike Braun just kind of, you know, talked about normal stuff, and then the others political. So I don't know, but that was cool to kind of see them and what they're doing right now in our U.S. Capitol. So we went out and got pictures in front of Capitol Hill, and I think you guys got my picture. Did they send it to you? They got pictures of all the counties / districts, co-ops. So I hope you guys got that. If I'm not. Okay, good. Sweet. And so then we went and saw the Air Force Memorial, and it's really cool. It's got, do I have it on here? I do. Right here, it's these silver looking spikes going into the air, but it's like for the Air Force when the planes like They go up together and then like fly out. It's kind of like their signature move. Hope you guys know what I'm talking about here. They just briefly explained to us, but that was neat. And then we went to the 9/11 Pentagon Memorial. That was really cool. Learned a lot. There was a guy there who was visiting his loved ones' bench, is what they're called, and he was telling us what they all meant. So the Pentagon's over here in this picture, and if the bench is like facing the Pentagon, that means that that person died in the Pentagon. But if it's facing away, like this one is here, you can barely see right there, that means they died on the plane. So it was neat how they did that. They had beautiful trees in there, water like running underneath the benches. It was really nice because the Pentagon didn't want anything tall like the Air Force Memorial. They wanted something like low, quiet, so you could be reverent in there. And then on the outside of the memorial, they have like numbers like 1958, 57, going up to like 1989, I think. Anyway, but it was when that person was born. So you find. And I think it was a 3-year-old a plane. So that would have been in the 90s, but yeah, it was a 3-year-old on the plane. So that person had a bench. But that was really cool to see. One of my highlights, right? And so that finished up our day at Capitol Hill. And then our last day, we went to Arlington National Cemetery. We saw the changing of the guard there. And we even saw them like laying a wreath there. And I guess that doesn't happen very often. So the chaperones were really excited for us to see that. There was a person that like stepped out of the barricade, man, and they got an earful. That was really cool to see too. And then we went to this place called Planet Word. It's like a new museum they have there. And it is like how the English, us, the United States, got our language. And so that was really cool. The top floor had this big globe with like spotlights in it. And it like had the continents and stuff, and it was just a big globe. And then around it, there were all these iPads, and you can listen to like voices from around the world on it and like speak with them. That was cool. And then in the room next to it, there was this big word wall. And it told like the story of how we actually got our language, and it would like display like big ships on there for the Vikings. And then have words like highlighted to be like, oh, the Vikings used this and we still use them today. Yada, yada, yada. Really cool. You can tell I'm a language nerd, but it's okay. The next floor had a really cool interactive library. You would go up to this mirror and press a little button, and it would show you like a scene from a book like this one. And it was like made out of paper or something, really cool. And then you could get books from the shelves and put them on the desks, and it would have like a voiceover of what's happening in the book at that page and a summary of the book, what's happening. Really cool. Then the bottom floor is like a joke room, like where they told jokes. Cool. A karaoke room, and then a room where like it shows and talks about how advertising gets people to listen to them. Really cool. And then we had our farewell event. It was a really short day because we did the Arlington and Planet Word in the morning, early afternoon, and we waited and played a lot of games in the afternoon for the farewell event. But yeah, and then when we had our youth rally day, I actually learned what a co-op is because I did not know what you guys did. I'm like, oh yeah, REMC, electric, cool. And they're like, well, they kind of do more than electric, you know. They get the money, pool it together, pay for the electricity, and then work with that extra money in their community. And I thought that was really cool that you guys did that because I had no idea. I was like, okay. So that was nice to learn about what you guys did and about what you guys do outside of the US as well. So I really loved that. Highlights would definitely be Library of Congress and this Planet Word Museum, and then just learning about the history of DC and looking at the cool architecture there. But yeah, that was my trip. Thank you guys so much.
Welcome.
for letting me go. And, yeah. Nice.
We're glad you enjoyed it. Does anybody have any questions for Claire before she leaves?
Thank you, Claire. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Claire, just a comment, most of that limestone you're talking about comes from Bedford, Indiana.
I know, that's what I was thinking, but it's like all the same. I don't know what they were thinking. Like you see like Lincoln's Memorial and those big pillars all over Washington. All the buildings look the same. Like we went past the engraving, US engraving, and I'm like, isn't that like another building we just saw a little like 5 minutes ago? I'm like, oh no. I'm like, no. But I would have totally gotten lost there. But, you know, and the White House. I mean, if it didn't have a sign in front of it that said White House, I'd be like, cool, that's the engraving, right? You know, US engraving or something. Like, no, Claire. But no.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome to head on out and the next topic, we're going to be going into executive session, so I'm going to be asking everyone to step aside for a brief period of time. I don't know how brief that's going to be, but
Last time, like 7 o'clock, yeah, well, for
The height.
5 minutes and we left it.
it's patches. But you had to go through it.
Yeah, sure.
I don't forget it.
Sorry, you said that the president for it. Well, I mean, I did it, it works.
His hair should go through this chair one day.
Oh, good. All right, have a safety minute, Brett?
That was the thank you letter that she also, Claire, submitted to you guys also. Safety minute, there's been a lot of push this month specifically around making sure everyone is aware of the law, number one, and number two, safety of all crews, not just Decatur County RMCs, but just making sure that when you see the orange sign, slow down. I listened to I don't even know what radio station it was, but they were talking about thanking this guy for slowing down when he got into the thing, because now the dad can go to work and participate in his kids' lives. I thought that was a really impactful commercial on the radio. But anyways, just a reminder to slow down when you see the guys out. And again, there's a law that covers this, and like first responders, utility workers in general. So just be safe and slow when you go through.
Take your time.
We got our orange cones and stuff.
Right. I mean, I know this is, you just finished that, but in my neighborhood, just this last week, some of the guys that work for RMC trimming trees were located in the bottom of a holler on the road, and you had to and the sign that says utilities workers ahead was halfway down the hill. So nobody from either direction could see them until they were top the hill.
Yep, flagging can be an issue. Sign placement is pretty important. I'll relay that. Thanks.
All right, the next topic for your information.
I've got one on the closed action items on the controls for substation to prevent partial outage on the high side fuse blown. In the March board meeting at the 41-minute mark, I specifically asked Rob Horton of Hoosier Energy about the 2 brownouts that occurred on the New Point substation on March 17th. He had stated that the New Point substation and 6 others out of the 250 Hoosier Energy substations have a fusing arrangement issue. He was going to get the information on what the issue was and what the opportunities are to prevent brownouts on that substation. So I don't consider that action item closed.
So there isn't a fusing issue. What he was talking about is their practice had always been, you blow a fuse, you refuse it, you move on. What their practice has changed to now for every co-op under Hoosier is they're going to change all 3. So a fuse is a couple $100. They get weakened is what happens. So if you blow one high side fuse, it puts stresses on all those other fuses. And so their best practice now is going to be, they're going to change all three. So in other words, you got 3 high side fuses. If you blow one, they're going to change all 3.
Okay, do they carry 3 fuses on each of their trucks?
They carry more than 3 fuses.
We have 1 fuse stored there in the weather. I believe I would still like to see why that substation is different. And if we need to add equipment to prevent brownouts on that type of substation.
So that's where I was going to go next. So we did an investigation because there are controls in that substation, all of our substations, that can be set up to sense high side voltage. And it will drop all 3 buses, basically. We looked at that and I had Pat and all of his guys meet with Hoosier 3 or 4 times to figure out and see, is that the right way we want to go or not? What they ended up coming back with is they did not want to change over to that. And it's about half and half, honestly. Some of the co-ops do have it, some of them don't have it. It's really co-op specific if you want that or not. There's the cons, and I can send you guys the report if you'd like to see it.
I would like to see it, yes.
The cons are really that you're gonna, number one, you're gonna get unintentional outages. So you're gonna dump the entire sub, which will actually make your outages worse. And number 2, because it's sensing, so any type of dip it sees, it'll drop all 3 of your fuses or all 3 of your buses, and then you gotta send a truck out there just to basically put them all in. The other con of it is whenever you blow a high side fuse, you got 3 scenarios. One scenario is gonna be where you have somebody that's got an outage. The other scenario is you have full power, no problem. The other scenario is you're gonna have a percentage on that one. For the last one that we had, we actually measured that and it was like right around 40% actually could have saw a brownout. So brownout, outage, no problems. If you sense high side fusing, what you essentially are gonna do is you're gonna shut all 3 phases off, which means now in that case, it was like 1,300, I think, on that, would have seen no power until they got it back, fused back in. So it's unintended outages, just because you're gonna see, if you see any type of dip at all, like millisecond dips, it's gonna throw all 3 breakers. And then the second con to that really was this, instead of having a small, when I say small, it depends on what fuse it actually is, but you're gonna have some people that are gonna see an outage that otherwise wouldn't have seen an outage over those 1,300 members, specifically on that substation. So I can send you guys all the report. I left that up to Pat and his team and all the guys that got together and they went over, they listed pros and cons. And they, to put that into place, that other setup, I think it was like a 6 to 8 month lead time to get it done, but the cost was pretty minimal. So, I mean, we've got the ability to do that. But like I said, the guys out back and Pat made the call that wasn't the best arrangement for us. And we were kind of asking, like, we knew these designs were set that way originally. So we were that was the whole point of doing the investigation was, why did they make the decision then to have it set up the way it is? Well, it comes back down to exactly what I was talking about, so.
You mentioned the pros, what's the cons, what's the pros on it, what would be?
Pros is you prevent blackouts, brownouts. But then you got all these other things that can happen. I will submit that report to you guys today.
What other questions do we have?
I do just have a general question for my knowledge of where it's located in the budget. On the check register and on the credit card charges, the amounts, and I'm sure they're in the budget because they're on there, but just like the employee events or the team building events, everything from Top Golf to over $900 to that and back to Amazon, where do those fall in the budget?
They are, I don't know right off the top of my head, Suzanne, but I can get you an answer.
That each individual budget has set for employee morale and team events?
It's all under A&G somewhere. I believe the number was there's 14, as we talked about, it was in the presentation, actually. I'll look for it in the meantime.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't find it tonight, though. I'll get it to you.
That's fine. I was just curious where all those are located at.
Right in the check register, we've got several budget refunds. Is that a budget billing settlement? Is that what that is? What?
I believe
Budget.
so. Show me one of them.
Page 7, there's several of them.
It's the solar pay out. I believe they're all solar.
The true up. Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Should have been listed as DG though, instead of, was it ND or N?
What page you looking at?
7, bottom of page 7, there's several. 3 or 4 of them.
5, 6, 7. I'll find out exactly. Dale.
I'm sorry, that's budget billing.
Yeah, that's what we thought. I don't think it's solar.
That's what those are.
I think it's the true up. I'll
That's what
confirm
it was, but if you.
I know they do it once a year, so it looks like that was probably the month. I'm sure that's what that is, but let me confirm, Dale.
And the open action items, the third one from the bottom there, update final budget and so on to reflect the 1% of. So I went back to the final revision and it still states it's 2%.
Matt got it to me, but I can't upload it because the server's down, so it'll be uploaded as soon as we get the server back up. We just finished it early today.
In the check registry, I guess power systems engineering, page 10.
10. Yep. Yeah, that's our construction contractor.
Okay, we had, I mean, I'm looking at this, and I went back to last month, this month was 16.7, last month, 44. Now that, we're doing that in-house? No,
It's PSC. PSC is doing, this was all part of the budget. All part of the construction work. They're doing the design work on that.
where's Kristen?
Chris manages them as a contractor, but Chris is not doing the design work for our construction work plan. Good question. We refer to him as PSC.
What else? Any other questions? Okay.
The pole replacement, last month we had pole replacements, which would have been in May.
You on check register?
Yeah. What page, there we go. Page 17. So that was that DNT power, that was a pole replacement there for X amount of dollars, and then the storm restoration for, were they the ones out there on 421? Was there more?
What do you mean?
Was there more? Was that just? Was there more that they went and replaced, or is that just that? Did that?
No, I think that, I don't think that's just for the storm, but it might be. I can find out. You're talking about line item where it says May 2020 storm restoration?
Yes.
No, that probably is. That's probably their crews for the storm. That'd be my guess. That number sounds right.
So, who else isn't there fiber on that line, on them poles?
There's communication.
Yeah.
Because if you go by there right now, they haven't finished. They've got this section of the cut off and their wires just hanging there. They haven't come put it back up yet.
And then other poles are still just laying there.
Yeah.
The other poles are laying there because the farmer wants them.
Okay. So do we get compensated for putting other People that put it back on?
We'll contact them during any type of storm work like that and let them know that their stuff's there.
That's why it's hanging.
Sometimes we'll wire it up.
Okay.
But no, we won't bolt it in per our contracts with the attachers. We won't,
Okay.
unless it's something that's like, it's gonna take us nothing to do. Well, then we'll do it.
I
But
didn't know if we could come say, we got there's other stuff. If they come out there and
sometimes they do, Clay. It all depends on the damage that was done and if they're getting calls on it. For instance, when we got that line hit out here on 3, where a dump truck had the top up and they drove through it, it actually stretched the communication enough to where they had outages. So yeah, they were out there fixing it and then they attached everything back up. So it really just depends. But normally in a storm restoration, we'll do the bare minimum to get the stuff up there and then we notify them that next day. If they don't know about it. And sometimes they're already out there. It really depends. It depends on the company. It depends on what type of damage it did.
I guess once I seen I remember looking last month, I talked about some of the amounts for pole replacements there. Back from, it'd be June registers, May registers, and April. And we've got there's a total of about 265,000 total pole replacements. Is that just a nose amount of time? And how much we got budgeted for pole replacements?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but
So I thought it was 43 or something we had to do.
so what pole replacements are you actually talking about? Are you talking about
The register,
No.
dollar amount that
rejected? So
I'm
D&Ts.
going off of, I'm not even counting that. I'm going off of May register, April register, it comes up to 200 and some thousand. And if there was 43 poles left that we talked about, that makes it like a little over $6,000 a pole to replace them.
Yeah. That's actually I don't think that's right. It's higher than that. Much higher than that. That's bid work though, right? So every year when we do pole replacements, well, actually in 2020, whether it be 2024, we're going to go back because we're back on the schedule. So we'll go back probably doing a lot of them. But the last couple of years and this year, it's a bid product. So in other words, we have to bid it through the RUS procedure, which means you bid it out a minimum, I think, of 5 and you have to take the lowest one. So D&T's won the last 2 years.
That seems astronomical per pole.
That's
cost
the average.
Where's the expense come in at?
It's labor. You got very specialized folks putting these poles up. That's average across. I'll be quite honest. I think across the entire industry, not just co-ops, just the entire industry, 7 would be pretty low, very low. You got very highly specialized labor there. You've got the poles, the materials aren't, although here lately they have been.
Anyone else? Good. Okay, we'll go on to the next item then. We'll approve last month's.
Anything to change? I just can have 3 additions. Under the education portion, I'm discussing, mentioned, Clay was discussing the policy review about how we can update the policy for board members to be able to communicate with employees. Was asking Brian Garrison how to proceed with that. And then under the election of officers, I asked Brian Garrison if there was an option to do co-chairs. The policies would have to change. It is an option, but the policies would have to change. It's not under our current policies to try to bridge or connect our board together. And then under the loan draw, and I don't have the exact verbiage, we discussed with Matt the formula or the equation to borrow money to ensure that our members' rates remain the same and still keep our infrastructure up to date. And that's kind of how we came up with a rough, formula equation, whatever the verbiage was, to ensure under the loan draw. It's been brought to my attention by a couple members of why the vote was for the loan. And my response was a paraphrase of, we had our CFO come up with an equation or formula to ensure our member rates could stay at this time the same and our infrastructure. I don't have exact verbiage on that, but there was communication with Matt regarding that.
That's already in here. Paragraph. Yeah.
It's not under the loan draw.
No, it's.
No, because we haven't done that calculation yet.
Yeah, but I believe that was part of the conversation.
That was under the, when we were discussing the
Read
loan
that.
draw.
Keep the rate stable, 3 million, capital credits 25 years and current average cash at hand. That's kind of how we came up with that.
Now, this was your guys' verbiage. We just went off of what the video said.
Yeah, but that was completely separate than doing the loan draw.
That's why we did the loan draw.
So we wouldn't have to raise rates.
Well,
To ensure they, as of this minute, with our infrastructure, we could keep them, the rates the same.
I mean, that's why we had the whole discussion around financial planning.
Okay, well, maybe it's just in the part I would thinking during the loan draws, it's not in that part. There you go, the variables, okay. I guess it's under the financial planning instead of the loan draws. I guess what variables, formula, equation, whatever the verbiage is to. And basically that was my response to the members, is we tried to come up with some type of amount to borrow to ensure the rates. I apologize, the last one. So just those two, if we could add those two to the minutes.
Can we go ahead and get it? Where do you want to start? I've got like the red line.
If, under the education, under the policy review, Clay, I don't know, you probably, I just jotted it down briefly, but whatever the
Yeah,
verbiage was.
I had a note here saying that I noticed that what in there as far as employee board communication on policy 1-3 was mentioned in minutes like we talked about. So
Or how you want him to type it, Clay?
What do you want me to type?
I think something needs to be said, discussion with Ryan about the policy. Amending it somehow or another to,
Where do you want this at?
at the end of the education right there, discuss what governors should be pertaining to director responsibilities. I think that's where we were at.
So I mean, it generalizes it there, we can policies, but you want him to hone in on 3, is that what you're asking?
But it should have been an action item.
I just had my notes. Clay asked Brian Garrison to review or update the policy to communicate with employees for the policy 1-3.
These are notes, so they're supposed to be somewhat general. Jeannie tried to make this as general as possible. Put in here whatever you guys want, but I mean, we didn't put in here every single point that everybody made. We got a video.
I think it's important that Clay brought that attention. I think it's important that I brought the attention to see if co-chairs were an option, just to have Brian Garrison here for his information to see what we could do.
Where do you want it?
Clay's discussion was under the education.
Clay, what do you want?
Like I said, we need to get someone that stated that we would.
Well, help him state it, that's what he's asking for, help him make the statement.
What do you want there?
I think policy at one point, that I had asked about policy 1.3 and, need to get with Brian to.
So,
Revise.
Because I don't know that we've ever put statements, and I don't know, I wish Brian was here, but we usually don't put everyone's statements in these minutes. I mean, we'll put in here wherever you want. They're your minutes, but typically we would never put director statements in meeting minutes notes unless it was like an action item or a motion.
Well, it's no different than her and asking about a co-chair. Why wouldn't that be in the minutes?
But we usually don't put like things, it's usually very broad. These are meeting minutes.
And there were no motions made at the time, were there, for either one of those?
I can just refer people to look at the video and tell them where it's at. I would just like people to know that Clay would like to pursue, and I totally agree, communicating with employees, that the board members should be able to talk to employees, and that if co-chairs could be an option to try to bridge and or put this board together, that we asked Brian Garrison if that would be an option. So I don't know how we get it on the action item list or what that needs to do to get that added to it, but I
I
think
think you just need to get on the agenda.
But I think in both cases, review board policies does fulfill what was done. It doesn't.
No, there was a request to alter.
Did we vote on any changes?
It was a request. And then you were supposed, I believe, if you go back and watch the video, there was a commitment that there was going to be some further investigation on what we could do so we could be allowed to talk to employees.
Brian was here that night. I don't remember voting on anything particular. Did we? I mean, I know, I'm asking.
No, we did not vote. It was a request. And I look into changing the policy.
And I think we need to put it on next month's agenda.
And I'm fine with that, but it should have been on this month's agenda.
So we'll leave this as is. Is there any other?
Under the ops building, I believe the vote was either 6-1 or 7-1.
It was 7-1.
Okay.
Where's that at?
Ops building, middle sector delegates. Motion passed, but motion passed 7-1.
Didn't even put, what do you want changed?
Planet motion passed 7-1.
That?
Passed 7-1.
Thank you. Pass.
Your grammar was.
I asked you, Patsy.
No, PASSED. Don't tell me she's in the kitchen baking.
Any other changes? Okay.
I do have a concern.
Okay.
We make all of these changes to these meeting minutes and they never get updated in our iPads. So if we go back to check the previous meeting minute,
They're filed.
but how do we do it for quick reference? Do we file them out on the dashboard and have all meeting minutes listed so they're the accurate meeting minutes? Because if we go back and look at previous,
They're on the website, but it wouldn't be a problem if you guys want me to update them. It'd be-
I would just like to have a quick access.
So, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think we even talked
You and I did.
before, but, where's the best place to do it? Go back into the call to order for that month and just update it there?
I think that'd be easiest. Yeah.
Easiest.
Or just put them on the dashboard. Either way, I just want to make sure that if we go back and review something 2 years from now and we're discussing it based on the meeting minutes on these iPads, they're not accurate.
There were the original meeting minutes. Why don't we do this? Why don't I just, if we change it, I'll just put like Rev 2 and just attach it in the past months.
I'm fine.
Because it is definitely easier to go back here than it is to come in and go through the books.
And I'm fine with that. I just want to be able to reference accurate meeting minutes.
They are on the website though, too.
But that would be very hard to get through.
No, I agree.
You want a motion for that?
No, we'll just do that. It's not gonna be. a big deal.
And you're fine having it go back to call to order, on the agenda versus dashboard. Everybody else good with that?
Just what you'll see is it'll say, if there's a Rev 2, you'll see like a Rev 2 fine.
So the original stays.
Original stays up there. I don't know how far you want me to go back though. You okay, just going back to like 22?
There's 8 of us here.
Yeah, it don't matter to me. I just don't.
Well, when time permits, just go back. I mean, like, if you just went,
Okay.
you start with this one and
I'll go back and mainly hit 22 and then this one and you'll see this. Because we've got them all documented, so it's not that big a deal to do. Just dumping them in there.
still need a motion to approve, then we'll change it. Included.
So moved. The noted changes.
Okay. Second. Don't think you can do that, do you? We have a first.
A second.
Suzanne seconds. All in favor, say aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, same. All right, next item. Sandy, you're gonna be addressing the board. Are you ready?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I need to move, am I okay?
I think you're fine there.
Thank you. I would like to bring forward some concerns brought to my attention by members of this cooperative concerning and following the annual meeting. The nominating committee, which is the previous nominating committee, has been through several meetings with staff, members of the board serving as credential and election committee, and representatives from survey and ballot. After these meetings, I was pretty comfortable with the explanation of the system and how it worked. However, after this year's election, I am not sure it is the bulletproof system that we thought it could be. I have had lots of phone calls, questions, and comments from members who are questioning things that occurred during this election. Among them, how much does all this cost? Why did the bill credit have to be entered that evening? It took way too long. Tried to explain about the Wi-Fi. Why are members allowed to vote in all districts? Shouldn't they only vote in the district they live in? Why do we even have this meeting anyway? That one I could answer. I had a member call and ask about election results. The comment was, the line was so long, I couldn't even wait. The gentleman that was lining up the cars took my ballot and said he would get it turned in. He already had one in his back pocket and he would be happy to take mine too. Unfortunately, I had to tell this member that their vote did not count. And I cannot repeat the reply. After comparing the notes that I had taken during our verification meeting and looking at the election results posted on the website, the information was different. I contacted several members of our committee to make sure that I hadn't misunderstood the information and they were in agreement with my notes. I will say that the information was read very fast and it was hard to write everything down. And to add another concern, we were asked to hurry up and finish because people were waiting. That doesn't seem fair when we are trying to verify an election. We are elected by members of this cooperative to make sure that we have fair and accurate election. The nominating committee would like to work toward a better experience for our members. Are there any parameters that we could put in place to make this happen? Should we go to a mail-only hybrid with no online and no voting at the annual meeting? and I know you don't want to hear this, but should the committee hand count the votes? I feel with the discrepancies brought forward this year, we need to make some changes. Well, and then I have a couple questions. Will the post-election survey results be shared with members or just staff and board members?
Can we get that? We'll do it in a board meeting.
Okay.
It'll be essentially shareable.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because I don't think we got 21 result. I don't even know if we did a survey after 21, or I should say you did a survey after 21, but I didn't know if that election data was available. I do know the voting percentage this year was trending almost 5% in numbers below 2020. And my concern is, how does the co-op engage more members?
We were actually, quorum, I don't know exactly vote count, but it trended up.
So in 2020, and this election history is from Crystal.
Rachel, yeah.
I'm sorry, Rachel. In 2020, and this was obviously the pandemic year, there was 27.11%.
Yeah, that was attributed to the fact of being a COVID year compared to 2021.
Okay, and I don't have 21, but this year it was 22.41%.
Yeah, I think last year was 21.17. I just looked at this data today.
If I remember correctly, and I forgot my notes, but if I remember correctly, this year there were 1,493 votes.
That sounds correct.
2 web votes were disqualified and 2 mail votes were disqualified.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
So, well, this is what
That sounds right, though.
during the meeting. And, we were told that in District 3, there was a 5-vote difference. The website shows different information. So people were calling me. I felt like it was fair for you guys to have all this information.
Thanks, Sandy.
Yep. Brian, do you want this?
Sure.
You can have it. I'll take a look.
Right, we'll have the CEO update.
All right, so first I'm going to go through some project updates. Oh, can't see it. So first off is the meter replacement strategy. This is priority 4. So we had completed the first 10. So obviously we hired a contractor. We did an independent contractor form. The idea was we're going to do the first 10. So we got the first 10 done. Now we're working on the second phase, which is the 25. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. So we're into the second batch of these. Actually, from the first 10 and the first, 5 of the 25, things are going in the right direction. Members are agreeing to put up meter pedestals and things like that. We've had to do no ownership transfers like we thought. So the way this works is as soon as the contractor actually gets it done, member signs off, he brings those in, they get put into our work order system. Most of the ones that are out there right now are basically waiting for green tag. So essentially they're waiting on the members to do their work. The idea is we're going to give them about 10 and then we'll start following up. So we'll have Brian basically calling those folks to follow up to see kind of where we're at. That's my big fear is we did this work, we got a plan. It's waiting on the member to get work done. So we're going to give them about a month and then we'll follow up. All in all, actually, it's going very well.
Right, in those discussions, is there any time schedule conveyed to the member when it's expected that they will have that done? I mean, I don't know that we contractually can obligate it, but do we indicate that, you know, we'd like to have this done within 30 days or 45 days or whatever the case is, so we can help bring closure to those items?
That was a good question, Dale.
I would suggest we do that. Again, I'm not asking for anything legal, but just in the conversation.
He's given an expectation, but I don't know exactly the time frame, honestly. I would say 30 days, but let me verify that. Next one is pole replacements. So this is priority number 5. So we're waiting on the last shipment of our poles. We've actually started, we've completed 17. So there's going to be 170 of these total. We're done with 17 of those 170. And again, we're waiting on, actually the poles are starting to come in. I think the last shipment is supposed to be tomorrow here. So it's moving right along.
Can we get Matt or whoever to update that project like we used to prior to May? It showed 2021 and poles to replace 153. And then prior to 2021, there was 43 poles. So I'd like to get some accurate numbers on what we're actually replacing.
So we're 17 out of 170.
We only had budgeted for 153.
For 2020, not for 2021's replacements.
Yes. That was in the first February through May project list. It was 153 poles. And prior year.
Wasn't last year's prior year.
May, I'm looking at the board meeting, May 2022, project list for 5. Execute 2021 inspected pole replacements, 153 poles. Execute inspections prior to 2021 pole replacements, 43 poles.
Yeah, so this isn't those. Those are prior years. This is,
The 43 is the prior years. The 153 is
that was last year's.
correct.
So that would have
But
been,
last year inspected.
no, 170 is the actual number that was rejected in 2020 last year. There's 170 of those that were rejected.
Okay, then that varies from what we've been told before.
I think-
But please list what the numbers are and then the percentage or the actual poles that have been replaced. So, and then on the prior to 2021, the 43 pole, is that project complete?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one?
Could I interject something there I learned the other day? They were inspecting the poles in our area the other day, and I stopped and talked to them. And the crew was very, very nice. They said they're inspecting, you've contracted to inspect 5,000 poles this year. And so I asked them how it was going. They said they had 4,000 inspected. And I said, what percentage are you finding that's bad? And they said about 10 to 15%. Now, if your number right there a minute ago at $6,000 a pole, and they're doing 5,000 poles and it's 10%, that's 500 poles. It's going to be red tagged. That's $3 million.
Possibly.
So I'm just sharing information that the crew is what they're finding currently and what they're doing in the area around us where we were at.
Believe it or not, for some reason, the percentage of rejected polls doesn't really correlate with, in other words, it's not the same every year. It deviates all over the place.
So I'm just sharing what the current information, what they're finding right now that you're going to get a report on pretty shortly. They were very kind to share the information.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Any other questions on poll replacements? And so just a little bit more on that. We're on a 9-year cycle. We changed that last year to a 5-year cycle. So essentially every circuit will get inspected every 5 years. That's just how that works. I don't know. Yeah, some years you will get a higher reject rate than others. That's for
The
sure.
other thing I thought you guys was really good. I mean, they made a point that they are recording all the contacts as far as fiber lines on there.
That was part of our budget that we did this year.
And one of the 2 fiber lines that's on the poles that's going by our place, they didn't know who it was and said, if you could find out. And I have checked with Crystal and she said that wasn't her department to find out. But anyway, said, we normally write down who those are, and we didn't know one of the two. And so,
Yeah, that does happen. If it's not marked and we don't have, I mean, that's the whole problem with the attachments is sometimes we don't know. They'll slap stuff up and we have no idea. That's why we changed that's why the Indiana law got changed last year is it put some teeth in there.
well, I actually drove the line, and I believe it goes from Hartsville, it's the TV service from Hartsville to Greensburg. I've driven that line.
Yeah, but who owns it? Who would I call?
Well, if you live in Hartsville and you want to get a TV service, I'd say I'd call, and then you'd probably get a number.
That doesn't necessarily mean so they do wheeling on these lines. Whoever owns the line doesn't necessarily mean that that's who it's through. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Just little insight on that a little bit. If you want to find out who owns the line,
Got it.
do what I did down at my mom and dad's place with Rush County, Shelby and Rush. I called them and I said, I'll just shoot the son of a bitch and we'll find out who owns it. And you know what? 3 hours, I found out who owned it.
All right, MaxGen process. So we did create, we updated our MaxGen policy. We still got some work to do. It's on our, it's going to be on our project list probably the rest of this year and obviously next year too. What we're wanting to do is take it at the next level to where we're meeting with all industries next week. Start talking about load curtailment, what type of loads that they'd be able to shed on request. So anyway, we got our first plans done, meeting with industries, the first meeting of 2 next week. Priority 7 is complete. We've got all of our transformers ordered. And as you all know, those will come in over the next 1.5 to 2 years. The lead times on these things are not getting any, but it's not like poles. They're still sticking out there, but we do have everything ordered as of last week. So.
Do they just get paid for as they come in?
Crew refusals, this is priority number 9. So we have a full list of true refusals. We now have a legal letter that we're going to use, which basically says you got 30 days. We will be there within 30 days to remove or cut the tree. What we are doing is going through the refusal list to see if there's any opportunities there where we may want to locate or we're going to do something differently. So as soon as we get done through that, hopefully in the next week or 2, we'll actually be starting to send some letters out. Cost of service study, priority 10. So we actually heard from John. So this one I did put on caution. He is running a little bit behind. He did contact us today, wants to set up a virtual meeting next week with us to start going through some of the stuff that he has done and some of the questions and things that he has. And then Matt's working on some of the pro forma stuff that he'll need for that. I also gave Steve some dates that John would be available. I guess the main question is from last board meeting, we had some questions that we wanted him to be able to come in and answer. Do we also want him to do the training while he's here, or is it just to answer these questions?
Yeah, I thought we could talk about that later. I mean,
Okay.
If now's the time to do it.
CT testing is done, so we've got all of our larger CTs completely tested now. We got a report, a 3-page report essentially for every one of them. We're actually going through those as we speak. It doesn't look like from the initial look at it that any of them are off hardly at all. So what we may have learned is we don't need to do this every 4 years, which is what they recommend. 14 is the operations building. I know, Clay, you got a call. Clay had some going on last week, I think, and then our team here had stuff going on this week. So we're hoping within the next week or so, you'll get a phone call, Clay. Plan is to go visit Bartholomew's building. So they'll probably call you and just drive together.
I'm asking.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Fiber grants. So we're still kind of working on trying to get an RFP template. The RFP template was going to be used to get the actual engineering work that we need to get done, specify exactly what has to be done and deliverable, and then the actual grant writing. I'm having a lot of luck finding an RFP, quite honestly, but And then the big, we're engaging with IEC. They have a committee that's basically looking at grants and helping people find grant writers and such. The big one here is they pushed BEAD and Reconnect back. So the idea was that it was going to be due, submittals was going to open sometime in July, and now they're saying it's going to be towards the end of the year. So still tracking it. We did find 5 companies that do the engineering / grant writing. So we do have enough companies to go to and get bids, but we're looking to get an RFP so that we can actually RFP it to those 5 companies. And then 20 is closed. URT tax is, you will see it on your August bill. It'll be a line item credit on the bill that shows the URT tax repeal, which was required by law. Any questions on those projects?
Can I ask a question? Free refusals?
Let's go. Go ahead and ask it real quick.
So we found they leave a door hanger on and give you a number to call. So we called them. We have a grid of walnut trees to be harvested whenever they're available, and said, don't cut the walnut trees. And the guy said, well, this one's like really close to being in the way. Is it in the way or not? Well, I don't know. Said, leave the walnut trees. If you need to trim a branch or 2 off, go ahead. So they cut it in half. So do they just do what they want to anyway? I mean, drive around, I see all the dead trees, I get what they're doing and I appreciate what they're doing. But, when that was obviously trees planted for harvest.
So the short version is they have a specification within their contract that shows them exactly what they have to cut and what has to be removed. So we're not only trimming trees, we started back in 16 doing tree removals.
Right.
So for cost cutting purposes, we don't shape trees.
Well, we weren't asking them to shape it.
No, I'm just saying a lot of.
Said it was borderline. It's like, then don't cut it.
I'm just saying that's probably why they chopped it, what it looks like in half, is because all they were doing is getting their 15 foot.
It's in half. They cut the top right off of it.
Oh, the top. Yeah. You want me to take a look at that or?
It's done. But we had a conversation with them. They were pleasant. We were pleasant, and then they do it anyway.
Tree trimming is a tough sell. I mean, it's a tough thing that we got to do.
There's dead trees and there's overgrowth everywhere, but don't ask us to call and have a conversation with you about these trees if you're just going to do what you want to do anyway.
Fair enough. Discuss later. Okay. All right, company metrics. So we're going to go back to June here. So June was basically, temperature was basically flat. Actually, it was the exact same number. And I checked that like 3 times because I didn't know if I believed it. But so it was June's temperature was flat from our 5-year average. If you look at the cooling degree days for June, it's basically pretty flat. Purchase energy, again, this is going to be a pretty same story here, pretty flat to our 5-year average. And then demand was up. I think it was right around 1%-ish from our 5-year average. We did make up quite a bit of ground though on overall sales to budget. So last month we were under budget by about 3.3%. We moved that from the last month to minus 2.4%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but in our world, that's quite a bit. If you look at the retail sales, not a whole lot going on here other than obviously commercial made a big change, which you would expect. And transmission finally went positive. Everyone else is, of course, same story. I hate looking at this chart. This has been a stormy season. Usually in the 5 years I've been here, you have 1 or 2 of these up here. We have been hit by, and actually Rush Shelby's been hit worse. That for some reason that area's really been hit. But as you can see, we bounce all over the place when it comes to SAIDI scores. So SAIDI is essentially the overall industry ranking of reliability. You can see that's where that May 21st ended up. Anything over the red line is what the industry considers a major storm. And then you see the June 8th and May 28th come up. Lost consumer hours for June. You can see we're below the 5-year average. June was pretty halfway quiet. Sorry, not the number of outages. That's the lost consumer hours right here. We're below our 5-year average for June. And then number of outages quite a bit less. So actually June was fairly quiet. Biggest things were wind, not trees, and then trees other. So trees and wind were our issues in June. I wanted to show 60, 90 days because I haven't showed it in a while. As you can see in June, we're still trending way below. I believe this is attributed really to the prepaid program is really paying off. So still trending down pretty good. Any questions for me from the CEO update? I'm going to attempt to do the financials here. So if you look at the balance sheet, we had over 400,000 in plant spent. So if you net the depreciation, our net utility plant increased by that $333,000. That means we're getting the work done. Statement of operations, pretty much the same story. Oh, by the way, on the balance sheet, our current equity is 65.35%. On the income statement, revenues, this has been a pretty similar story all year, but revenues are under budget by about $93K. Power costs are following it by about $296, resulting in a gross margin above budget of around $103,000. Controllable expenses are over really mainly due to just timing of right of way. We actually got a lot of right of way done earlier in the year than because what we typically do is we take the dollar that we get approved in the budget, and if we don't hear anything from the contract company that wins the bid about when they specifically end up doing it, we usually just divide it by 12 and spread it across. Well, they got it done a lot earlier than spreading it across. So that's a lot of what the controllable expenses off is. The other part of it is we had 2 storms that we brought in contractors. Clay, that was part of your question, that was one of those where we had to bring in extra crews. So that's mainly the story in the income statement. Cash flow, essentially we had 18 million going out in the door and 19 going out, which is a net decrease of cash of about 567, I believe that says. So again, that's just a representative of the fact that we're getting a lot of our construction work plan projects done and invoiced, and then through our system through the report. And that's what I have. The other thing I was going to report, or Matt wanted me to report on, was we did do the loan draw. It was effective July 15th. Final interest rate was 3.184, which is dramatically going to help our blended interest rates. So July 15th, 3.184.
No repricer.
No repricer, fixed for 30, yep. And just to let you know, we put 2 million in the daily fund, used 100 of it for the Hoosier bill, 2 million in the daily fund, 1 million on the Hoosier bill, and then we've got $1 million ready to go for this whip out the door. We got a lot of projects that are done, waiting on the work order to close. That'll be paid shortly.
Questions?
On the financial management plan, so we left that on the agenda just because the board's action item was to try to back calculate into what is our equity or our percent of borrow going to look like to keep rates stable. Matt's got a lot of that work done, but not complete yet. He was on vacation 2 weeks ago, and then he's been really ill this last week. Not there yet, but we're hoping to have something for next month, so.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next item, the director compensation. I know, I think Suzanne, you had brought to my attention, and Brett, you can maybe verify this. If you look at if you can pull it, the first column per diem for regular board meeting, looks like it includes the
Container and star. Our number isn't confidential.
700.
It's comparing all the other numbers.
That's correct. They can't put numbers or names.
So I'm fine with that.
So we kind of argued back and forth of where to put what.
Okay.
The current per diem, so if we do definitions of the per diem, it's 250. But everybody else's per diems, you know what I'm saying? So it's more of like, where do you want to put that? Sure. That 950 that's in that column is what everybody else would be, the same way everyone else was reported.
I just was.
That's why
I
I know last year it was reported differently.
the other opposite way.
Yeah, and so,
But I mean, I think what this tells you is we're in line.
Yes.
right, kind of where we fit in.
All that.
Yeah.
I'll gladly free.
All right, so I want everybody to take a look at what we have here, and I think Brett just alluded to it, and I agree kind of where we fit in total. Are there any
The averages.
changes that anyone thinks needs to be made at this time?
There should have been the number listed for other fees. For what, Jeff? Other fees, we're one of the, I think we're one of, just looking at it, 4 that don't have any, that would cover your
Mileage.
travel, training. We all have to take training, so there has to be an expense there.
Yeah, it has to do with the definition they have around, what,
Travel registration, education,
Second to the last Q.
I've got a 0 or a blank.
Per diem's already listed.
Well, the cost per director would include the education.
Are you talking about?
it has to do with the definition.
Again,
It would be the per diem though, because it's already listed.
You want me to get you guys the definition?
no, I'm good with that, but just so the members, 97,332 was spent last year on the director expense. When I first came on and ran for director, I asked what the pay was, and I was told I had to win to find out. It was actually 185,000 budgeted. So as directors, we've cut that cost almost in half.
Did that include health insurance premiums at the time though?
Yes, it did,
That's changed.
which we did away with.
No, we put it into the per diem.
Well, we modified it to the stipend.
We definitely put it into the
Somehow you went from 185,000 to 97,000. So
training.
it changed.
It's the training. It's training dollars. You guys aren't training here as much.
Training or travel?
Both.
We're all training.
Training and travel, not as much as the last board.
But we have to do 2 required a year.
Too, but
Policy.
they used to get their BLC within the first like 3 or 4 years.
I don't know too many ideas. There was CC, more people. Yeah, yeah.
They may be slower.
Anyway,
But
so
it's definitely travel around training and conferences as well. Is what's dropping it.
Sorry.
So let's go ahead and I want you guys to answer the question. Are there any other changes that you guys?
Yeah, well, did IEC propagate this?
Yeah. They did.
Okay, so you know that ours is not correct.
Well, that's what Brett was alluding to, is how it's defined versus how it should be.
Yeah, but
So,
so you're aware
so
that
he's, yeah, so the 950. And
If you go to, the definition of column B is you go to a board meeting where you get paid.
but
to me, the only column that matters is the one on the end.
Correct.
Average, the total and the average cost per each director. And it looks like we're low, so I'm good.
But what I would argue or what I would say is that could be good, that could be bad. That could be meaning you're not doing the training and conference work that possibly other ones are.
Or instead of going to wherever XYZ, California, Florida, we're doing more things virtual in the last couple of years too.
That's a darn good point.
Yeah, which is positive. Okay, so everyone's fine with where we're at. Say, few heads nodding would be fine. Okay, we're good. Let's go to the next item, the director election bioformula. I think there's an attachment there.
Yeah, so I'm just going to sort of read this. So several years ago, we created a template for director and nominating committee candidates bios. So it's essentially what I mean by formula is it's a bunch of questions. And this was done to try to provide some consistency and fairness to all candidates. Again, there's been times, and I don't know that it's been like deviations that are like not acceptable. I'm not saying that at all. But there have been deviations. So what I'm asking is for I don't want to be the policeman for deviations. It puts us in a really, really awkward position. But if you can put anything you want in a bio that reflects something that may be misleading or whatever, is that acceptable? All I'm looking for is guidance from the board. My recommendation would be hire a lawyer to essentially come up with the formula and the questions, and whatever they come up with is put in policy.
Basically a standard template that all candidates complete.
And then there's no deviations from that template.
Would you need a lawyer to do that?
I was gonna say.
I'm just saying a third party, somebody that does.
Well, I know my last bio, but the last previous election, my submission was 29 words over the limit, and that pick photos would not be permissible because they wanted to be a fair election, which I don't know why all of a sudden this year photos couldn't be allowed when they've always been allowed. Our photos are put everywhere, but if that's something as simple as that, it's just a matter of your 29 words too much and photos won't be permitted to make it a fair election.
Yeah, no, it's more about the questions that we ask. So essentially what we're saying is,
But it's more of a fill in blank. It's pretty much a fill in the blank.
yeah, but they're directed questions. I mean, it's pretty like, what are you involved in? Those questions, sure, we could come up with them, but I don't want to play what's an okay deviation? Is it okay for a director to say, I'll give you $100 if you vote for me? Am I allowed to okay that? I don't know.
I don't think you should be okay.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think it's accommodating.
I think that's 100% agree.
But that's what I'm saying. The system's already in place. We just need to follow the bylaws.
But then who supports that? Is it boards? Supports up with the, in other words, if somebody deviates and does something like Brett just said, I'm gonna give you $100.
Like, here's what happened to me was that went in and changed my whole statement. So
We're not gonna talk about,
well, let me speak a little bit, Steve. And it really ticked me off that she changed almost word for word everything that I did, that I wrote in. I only had.
did you follow the,
And I brought back in what I had given her, and I brought in what she wrote, and I said, you do not write what you write what I write.
That's why I do not want to be the referee.
But the thing is, Brett, is that why you having somebody change something with somebody else? Now, I get the words, so many words, so many paragraphs, you don't want a book out there, but you don't rewrite what someone wrote for their own.
All we were trying to do was to follow the template. That's the issue. That's why I'm asking.
So Carl's is the example of what the issue was.
No, I would have approved that deviation. There was nobody last year at all that, in my opinion, isn't acceptable. All I'm saying is that it could happen, and I don't want to be the person who's doing it.
You shouldn't.
So you don't want to be.
I agree.
He shouldn't be doing.
If it hasn't happened yet, then
It has happened.
it has happened.
So you're just looking for the enforcement of it, basically?
No, I'm looking for what questions.
And I agree, I don't think it needs to be an attorney, but doesn't Sherm or somebody have something like that? Surely.
You've got the questions, but you guys need to look at them and say, is that the right questions or not?
So we just need to review the blank bio sometime between now and next year.
And then we need you guys need to create a policy that says the director is to follow this. And that's what goes in the
candidate. Simple.
Yeah.
So that I have something to say, well, you can't change it to that, sorry. Doesn't fall. That's all we're asking. You want me to, I'll submit the actual questions that we use. In other words, the idea is you ask these three, and she's right, they're pretty high level. Here's the 3 questions that we ask, or 4 questions, 5 questions. The director will fill those questions out, and then we create the bio. That's the whole point of a formula. So some directors some directors, that's all that gets put into their bio. But if you allow deviations to write their own bios, then it's a little bit unfair.
So it sounds like you're asking for the board's help.
Yes.
To come up with a policy that will help support this process.
Correct.
And I think the good start that you come up with is, we can start with the questions that are at hand right now. We have those. And then we'll work on it as a board.
Yeah, so why can't you have the template, fill it out, somebody put together the bio, and then everybody get back together? Those 2 people get back together, and go over it.
That's what we do.
Make sure it's all,
But what if the director comes back and says, well, I don't like what you got in there, I want to rewrite it? You allow that? That's what happens, Clay.
If it's under the limit of the words, I don't see what the problem is. If you got 3 paragraphs or 2 paragraphs, whatever the words is, say you got, let's just say 250, Suzanne, is that what it was?
I just know mine were 29 too.
Like 250 words. You can only put so much in 250 words.
Make sure.
But I think the goal is to follow the questions to create the template and not deviate immensely from that. So
That's the whole point of it. I'll submit the questions and then you guys can decide to go there. I don't want to be the approver of, none of us from a staff standpoint want to be an approver of bios.
It's like a CEC thing to me.
That could be too.
Or the nominating committee.
There you go. Put it on nominate.
There you go.
It don't matter as long as it ain't me.
That's what, yeah,
all right,
it's their job.
let's submit the questions. We'll work on it as a board.
Says you.
Next item, we've got some policy reviews. I think we'll go through the changes individually.
That's fine.
There were just, in the last 2, there was just one more. But if you want to go over that.
Yep, so 4.8, the only thing we did was just change, it's just a review. We didn't see anything change essentially, other than the title.
I did see, you got July 2020.
July 208.
Yeah, I'll change that. Not July 208. We didn't see any other changes to make. This is a high level required policy by every US.
Why am I having trouble with B? Look at B under responsibility. Directors, any changes? What did you just change the one word there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a.
Got it, I got it. Okay, so that's all that's changed there.
I think all these are.
Yeah, they are. So we can go ahead and go through the other 2. I thought this one was a little more, just based upon all the red lines I did see, but there's really.
These are all just title changes.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that before, Jim, you mentioned CEO. So let's bundle all 3 of them together, but we can look at the other 2 as well. Employee vacations, if there's something else.
Employee vacations, is sick time handled separately?
Yes.
We don't have a PTO policy, there's separate policy.
so I just got, it's maybe it's an odd question here, but when I go through there and I see X amount of, you've been here so many years, you get this many weeks back and forth. I'm curious, what's the CEO's vacation time? Who audits that? And then who covers the CEO when he's on vacation?
So 3 questions. How much, I don't even know what I have.
In the contract.
It's in the contract though,
Is it?
I think. And then what was the second question?
Audits.
Who audits who makes sure that there ain't more time taken off than, not saying this, I'm just saying who audits that?
Don't know who would audit a CEO's
Is it the
time.
chairman and CEO or chairman?
The board, I guess it would be the board. I do have to record it. It's on my pay stub. I mean, it's.
How do we know when, and this is, how do we know when you're out or on vacation? How does the board know? Does that not?
No one's ever asked me that question. I don't know.
Well, because if you're out, who covers what here?
I'll make that determination depending on who's here and what has to be done that way.
An outage, when somebody's trying to,
An outage is different. So an outage is already, there's already a chain out there. But typically I will delegate anything I have to whoever. Crystal usually gets the lot.
okay, I just want my information questions. Okay.
No, good question. I log my vacations in the time in the, what do you call it? Our time system, just like anybody else does.
So 10.5 was just, I believe, the one change as well, and then 10.8 under employee education. Change from general manager to CEO. So all three are basically the same. So let's say anybody has any questions.
I've got just an observation on 10.8 regarding the education. Is there any wisdom in changing that percent from 75 to a graduated depending on performance? Or we're not talking about classroom work.
No, that is, I think, talking. We'll share it.
I've seen that done as an incentive, that the better you do, the higher the reimbursement is.
We can definitely,
I'm not suggesting, I'm just.
I've seen it that way, sure. To answer your question, it's this way because this is the way it's always been.
Is that something you would?
I've just seen it done. I think it builds in an incentive to get the return on the investment that we're making. And it encourages them to perform at the highest level they can.
I can pull some folks that do that, some examples and bring them in.
I would appreciate seeing that.
No problem.
I don't think it's detrimental to the employee. If anything, it's encouraging to them and giving them the opportunity to mitigate their cost.
Did you have a question?
No, I just had a comment. He was asking about that, and because I thought there was somewhere in here where it said that there, yeah. When employment, if something happens with the employment, the employee has to reimburse RMC. That's if it's within the 3-year time frame, past 3 years, okay.
I'll pull some examples of how others folks have that. And that as an action item. I've seen it that same way too, and that'd be fine.
Well, the dollars is minimal in our grand scheme of things, but to that person, it may make a difference.
You're right. I agree.
All right, so I'll take a motion to approve make changes for the three policies, 4.8, 10.5, and 10.8.
I'll make the motion.
Jeff,
Second.
Rob seconds. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same. These are approved. All right, the next item, the board strategic initiative and board governance. I wanted to include in this session what I think Jason brought to our attention or suggestion last month's meeting regarding the retirement of a director. And I believe that the bylaw changes need to be made before we approve that. And so what I'd like to discuss now, though, is what are those changes that need to be included? We'll give it to Brett, go through legal to make certain it's all incorporated, and then it can be brought back to us, whether it's next month or the month after. So I'm open.
I want to interject though, that if we don't have 2/3 of us that agree to this, there's no need to spend the money.
Right.
So we do kind of need the poll,
Yeah, I need kind of a head nod,
even though we're not making the.
tell me they don't approve.
I would like to see what the line boundaries are before I approve it.
Well, and we'll have to look at that, but you would consider that though, correct? Am I hearing you that you, because I think you said that last month.
I definitely, as long as I see what the boundaries were going to be prior.
Oh, the boundaries, okay.
Those obviously would change, but
I'm not,
yeah, I talked, well, and when I was at Hoosier the other day, I talked to some other directors about this. So when we do this though, we're gonna need to redistrict based on the census
population.
population, yeah. That's how they're gonna get redistricted, or that would be my suggestion anyway.
By members or
By
by
members.
meters?
We did this one other time. What was
Meters,
it?
probably.
So that's how they determine it. I asked by members or meters, or how does that?
So, as you look at those maps, that's probably where that originated from to start with, right? Every time you redistrict, you're trying to get the same amount of representation for each district.
Sounds similar.
So in addition to that, so we got the director position, obviously, and it needs to say if it's vacated. It doesn't have to be a retirement. There could be another circumstance in which a director position would be vacated.
Right.
So it needs to say vacated, first of all. It's also going to affect the nominating committee and the community trust
Yeah, because
representatives. So in this scenario, if, say, I would resign District 7, then my District 7 appointee for the community trust would finish their term. But at the end of because our terms aren't the same, at the end of their term, then there would no longer be a District 7, but they could run again in one of the others.
that they're in.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be the same thing as the nominating committee. So that nominating committee person would stay on past the director's seat as an at-large member. But at the next time when their term would regularly be up, they would be done, just like they would, they would finish their term. Everyone would finish their term. The community trust and the nominating committee would finish their term. They would not be penalized because a director.
If they don't end at the same time, I mean, there's scenarios.
So it would include a retirement, something would happen to someone, or if someone simply chose not to run for reelection for their seat.
But there wouldn't be any redistricting or two directors in the same district, so one of them would have to be, no one would have to leave.
Nope.
Okay. I would like to see the maps and then I support it.
I don't know if you'll have the maps though, because don't you need to know who's the
What district you're.
Well, we're operating on a little good faith here, right? I mean, as long as the districts are the same, who cares what the map looks like?
Because if two directors fall into that same district, one's going to have to give up a seat.
Well, you would have to let that person finish, right? I mean, we've done this before. Decatur County has done this.
Let him finish his 3-year term or let him, see, that's where I don't support it.
I mean, you could almost have next door neighbors that are directors, correct? I mean, based upon the way the district is.
And I think they need to be.
This is ridiculous. Okay, so somebody step up and let's make this happen. All right? Yes, it might be painful for someone, but it is in the best interest of the membership.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to have the 2/3 vote for it to go through. So I need to see if we can spend the time to get to that.
It's going to cost money.
You got to do this, to go through.
Those districts are surveyed. I mean, that's
Why couldn't we count either the meters or members and make it happen ourselves? Or at least get an idea what it's going to be. We have the
There ought
map.
to be a map.
I don't
yeah.
know. I mean, if that's your hangup, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that.
Right, and then you get it to where all existing members.
But you're still not gonna know who's gonna not run again. You don't know which district's gonna be vacated, so.
That's the tough part.
But you've got to assume that it's gonna be,
Imagine it would be that big a difference, it's honestly.
no idea.
But
I know the
I'd like to
process.
see before it goes to.
I know the process works because I know that this co-op's done it before. No, I don't. How long ago was that?
I'm gonna say 8 years ago, but no. Probably been 8 years. Eight.
So I think tonight, all we're asking for is a poll of the directors. Would you consider doing this? We need 2/3, or there's no need to spend any money moving forward. Because this bylaw change requires 2/3 vote.
But we're not voting to change the bylaws tonight.
No, we're not.
No, because we don't have them. You're just saying,
You will
I will investigate.
No, I totally support that, Jason. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, we don't have the bylaws wrote yet.
And we're not even I'm not making a motion tonight. We're just polling the directors to see if it has enough support to spend money doing the investigation, see if it would be worth it.
I'm gonna go around the room. Carl, are you in?
I'm for it unless, put in there as we go a term limit.
This has nothing to do with term limits.
You're in. So you're saying your decision's based upon,
Redistricting, why would you not have a term limit?
I think a term limit could be implemented at any point. Has nothing to do with how many directors we have.
Or 7 or 5 or 9.
You want a term limit? I would suggest you bring that up. We could do that anytime. No matter whether you have 8, 10, 7, 4.
That's not what I'm talking about.
That's not what we're talking about.
so
I'll go for investigation. I'll get
follow through, to follow up with the bylaw changes and redistricting. Jeff?
I'd like to see the maps. I would think that we could do maps internally without any cost.
Won't be able to do the maps because you don't.
It's a yes or no, guys.
Yeah.
If it's a no, then we're not going to spend the money. It's real simple. Are you willing to at least investigate it? That's all I'm asking.
Jeff?
I'm willing to investigate it.
Okay,
That's my biggest commitment tonight.
Okay, Clay? Jason? Suzanne?
Yes.
Brian, okay. So it sounds like we'll go ahead and go forward with suggestions, and we'll, I don't know, if I don't know, we need them next month, but
I think they can get done next month.
It wasn't next month, but
Bylaw changes.
I won't support voting for bylaw changes until I see the maps.
You won't be able to get the maps.
I don't think we're asking for a vote next month anyway.
They just.
Let's see the bylaw changes.
the bylaw changes.
Baby steps here, guys.
I mean, we have to jump in right away. We'll look at that. All right. I think that takes care of that portion of it. On your iPads, if you all have the opportunity to go back to January's meeting. January. What's that?
It won't let me do it because I just got my iPad today and the server won't connect with Sam to make sure I was doing, he said that there's a miscommunication with the server.
I can't get to it.
I can't handle it.
It's not in the correct, I have a error saying it's not in the correct format.
Bring it up.
What do you want to bring up? I want you to bring it up. See, I thought it was in January. Maybe it's in a second. Oh, I know what you're saying.
No, isn't.
Check.
He's trying to spin it up now, so he said he's hoping.
Look for the strategic event stuff. It should be January.
But it's up in the, for your information, right? No, I'm thinking of something different,
Yeah.
Steve. I don't know.
I'll have it in a second.
This is great.
Where were you going into that, Steve?
Well, I'm gonna bring,
Yeah.
here it is. I got it right here. It is January. Do you have January? Does everybody else have January up? If you do, go into,
I can't pull it up.
I can't get it.
None of us.
okay, you guys can't?
Get to it.
Yeah, I'd like you to bring it up.
I'm on.
Meeting.
Yeah, you can.
I shouldn't have done it today.
January.
Like,
11, strategic initiatives.
Well, you're talking about the rest.
before I was talking.
Yes.
Because I was
That's what I'm doing.
so bad at typing and I had to go back and triple check because some of the words come out. And it was
Start out.
citizen.
Brad, if you can go to.
I was taking that one. You're right, citizen. That's two, that's a video. No, that's
Sorry.
not approved.
Where are you at?
Okay.
I'm the only.
Guys, anybody listen out here? Under strategic initiatives, this is the January board meeting, the report out.
Report, okay?
Can you find that? Brett?
I'm lonely. I have on the front page of the Pittsburgh.
You got it, Clay? Joke.
From Suzanne.
All right, Brett, I can just read it. It's fairly short.
Page with.
Page 3, under governance, the board of directors has authority and responsibility to manage the direct affairs of the cooperative. With this comes the responsibility to determine whether the board is acting prudently, efficiently, and with care and due diligence in carrying out its responsibility for governing the business in accordance with state and federal laws, the articles of incorporation, cooperative's bylaws. The board's primary governance responsibilities include planning, ensuring that the cooperative operates with all applicable laws and regulations, serving in the capacity of trusteeship on behalf of the membership, and evaluating the board's and management's performance. List potential metrics, board competency reports, self and external assessment reports, and develop a CEO succession plan. Guys, I'm bringing this up again. This is the third time I think I brought this up. We went ahead and approved a resolution that incorporates this portion, the governance of the board. So I'm asking again, how are we going to go forward with this? I've reached out to, I believe it was 3 or 4 different facilities working on assessment. And I heard mostly negatives associated with that. But I need input because we need to do something. We as a board need to do something, and we are a membership, the same thing. So, open for suggestion. We can go back. And we're gonna have to spend money on this as well. I mean, it's part of the process.
We already agreed to do that, I think.
Well, we did, but I heard the money was an issue the last time we spoke. Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the budget.
Did we have 2 proposals?
We actually, the first 2, again, I'd have to go back and do my research as well. But I'm asking for your support to help guide me into reaching out and trying to firm this up instead of, waiting another 6 months. I'm sure there's other avenues we could potentially take as far as reaching out to maybe other organizations that do assessments such as this, but, and I can certainly do that. But I need your buy-in that we're going to go ahead and follow through with this instead of me just making random phone calls that someone says it's not worth it.
Are there any resources at our disposal at IC that would help facilitate this?
I have not talked to them, and I suppose that there might be.
I have no idea.
Available. I'm actually going to a meeting there next Tuesday, so that'd be a good approach. I know there's a lot of different companies that do this, but IEC, I could reach out to them and just see maybe who they would recommend.
I'm in favor. I think it's an obligation we get. If we don't, we're abdicating our responsibility.
And, I think we talked about it in the past, the sooner the better. So
We're due.
are you in? Think it's something we need to do?
I need to read that over again. I didn't get it on my iPad or nothing like that. Just find out what was.
Well, it's something we as a board agreed to, that we would go ahead and follow through with this kind of a board competency report along with a self-assess and external assessment. So, Jeff? Are you good with it? We're good with me following through and trying to come up with something? Now, again,
I'm good with that.
I will make the decision that that's who we'll go with.
But if we can get somebody from IEC and it's free, that's. But you're gonna contact IEC, right?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so everybody's on board. We are going to go ahead and make the commitment to follow through with this. Yes?
With the right facilitator,
Okay, then define the right,
right,
do we need to define that now then?
just fill in the blanks like the ones I've been through.
Okay. Now, I did come back though with another
I
option.
know we spoke briefly, just the cookie cutter, fill in the blanks.
I know we talked about that. I do remember those, but I also talked to somebody else that says I can do the interview and then I can come back with an assessment that we can try to cater to your needs.
I think with the right facilitator, I absolutely agree.
So we have also used folks from the Kelly School of Business at Hoosier to do this in the past. So if you don't make any headway at IEC, maybe we could
Okay,
talk about that, maybe.
good.
I can get you that name too. That's probably, I don't think at IC.
Anybody, but again, they may give me a,
Have a facilitator direct.
But you know, some of those we had earlier, we're gonna have to travel here. I'm just thinking,
right.
we'll make this
I
number.
doubt it. Yeah, expenses from that perspective.
That's actually a really good idea. You probably need to contact them.
I know who it is.
Okay, maybe you can share that. Okay, so it sounds like you're all in agreement that we will attempt to pursue this. We need to. All right, carry on then. We're ready for, get a hometown interview.
Yes. We had a meeting on Monday, the 25th. And we went over all the numbers and everything. We set the price at 59 for sales price, and then what everybody cares about, our distribution was 100,000, so our half of that is 50,000. And I forget what else Crystal had.
2023 budget was approved, the sales price was set and the distribution, I mean, that's.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
I can't remember if Crystal had. Okay, yeah, we talked about meters again, how they're gonna be going bad and needing to buy more of those, but. Yeah, that's about it. What was that? Year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
It always starts for the heating, the heating season, the start of the heating.
I didn't know if it was biannual or if it was annual, just that rate.
You usually hedge and buy it a year in advance. I say we, that's not us, that's Premier Ag.
But no,
When I say we, that's not us, that's Premier Ag.
I got you.
Hey, Brian, anything else?
No,
Any questions for
well,
Brian?
I guess that we scheduled the next meeting for January, but
I don't need.
that usually gets rescheduled to July,
Oh, okay.
so. Because there's usually not a lot going on.
Not a lot
to
going on.
Discuss, so.
You never know. There could be in January. It could be January next year. All right, Jason, you're up.
Well, we had a board meeting on July the 18th. So a couple highlights, I just wanted to go over a little bit. We've talked a lot about things going on in the power markets. We've all heard the news that the investor-owned utility that's in our area applied for a substantial rate increase. So what you're seeing on the board is where we are with that increase. So Hoosier, Wabash, Indiana, Michigan, and Duke. So that's the first one. Next slide is.
They're on the same.
Yeah. So that just gives you, I've not shared any of these with you guys. I thought I should. This is another slide that was available at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting that's showing Hoosier, the national average based on what's happening right now. So the purpose of me showing you this is that the fuel costs are being managed at Hoosier. The results of the one that we saw previously is from not being able to hedge fuel sources. Although natural gas has come down quite a bit, there was an explosion in the Gulf, and it's limited their ability to export gas. So that's put some downward pressure on the prices. Terrible. It's a terrible thing, yeah, but it has helped. And then let's go to the next slide. This is our mid-year rate outlook. So this is the all-in energy demand fixed charge and all trackers. So the column to the left, if we look at 2022, the left is what we had expected the year to look like in November. So we expect to be at $74 a megawatt. Obviously, we're at 78. And then the next 2-year projections are there. So that's a significant increase in gas, coal, and market power prices in the past 9 months. And the global fuel challenges impacted further by the Russian energy sanctions. So that's just kind of like a 2-minute overview of where we are. I just wanted to show you guys this because it's actually, it's not the news we wanted, but it could be a lot worse. So as far as 23 goes, and the energy and capacity markets, Hoosier's in good position. However, all of our neighbors are not. So that could affect the grid. There are some restrictions for investor-owned utilities and how far they can hedge things, and it's negatively impacted them significantly bad.
How realistic are 23, 24?
I think at this point, it's anyone's best educated guess.
Okay.
Honestly, if you can tell me what fuel prices are gonna do, I can tell you if that's right or not.
No, you're fine. I didn't know if there was something.
And if you know that, you and I are gonna, we're not gonna be sitting in this room. That's based on what we know right now. That's the best educated guess. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea of where we're at. And I think that's about it for me.
All right, and I see there's a board meeting coming up in August. And I have a committee meeting for facilities next week. So I need to read. Next month. About director training and conferences.
I attended the Rush Shelby annual meeting
Okay.
on July 13th. Right away, I noticed that the difference was the line was going through really, really quickly. And I just went up to the registration. I told them I wasn't there to register. I was just being nosy from Decatur County. As a board member, wanting to discuss, they were using all their phones. They weren't connected to Wi-Fi. I told them they had problems with the registration iPads. They all had their individual phones. They were running them through like cattle to get them in there, not even literally like a scanner at Walmart. So that was really, and then they had a separate line for the voting on site. They use SBS, very similar to how this ran with the voting.
Yes, okay.
Very similar. Within less than 10 minutes, the former CEO and the new CEO both knew my daughter and I were there attending and came directly to talk with me and I just told them I was just being nosy, see how it ran. It was definitely a family affair. There, and I knew how many meters. I knew they were double our size, but then you forget that our neighbors like in Oldenburg, Hamburg are all on Rush Shelby. So I knew quite a few people, a lot more than I anticipated knowing as members. But I do know they were twice as big as us. It was
a small proportion of the lake.
The weather was perfect. They had kids going up and down in the bucket trucks, smiling ear to ear. That was probably the line longer than the petting zoo was for the bucket trucks, which I thought, that's a simple thing to do is have the linemen take these kids up and down. That's not a huge investment. Music playing, same Chick-fil-A, Super Twist on the way out. And it's really, and I've said this, but just that networking, I started talking to several of the directors. We all kind of got a little, which, that networking versus the virtual thing when attending those meetings is so important. Got some input from them. It was good. It was a good
experience.
It was a good experience. I mean, definitely a family. Definitely as much for the children as for the paying parent members.
Yep.
So And then I got approved, well, not approved, but on October 27th, IEC is going to conduct for women board members, Women in Energy. So I'm going to attend that. It's the first time they've had just females only attend that.
Anybody else attend anything else?
I don't have, I've got one scheduled in November, BLC class in November 17th. I think Jeannie's already registered me, so.
Anything scheduled in the near future?
In November also. Here on purpose.
Years.
Hope you're done.
It's like the 22nd or 23rd.
17th.
Unless we have anything else, motion to adjourn.
Sam just said the server's back up if we want to try.
Mine loaded.
Do we have a second? Adjourn?
I'll second.
You'll fight over it. You'll fight over it. Seconding. All right, we're adjourned, everybody. We are going to go into executive.
Thank
Strategic
you, Sam.
technologies and their impact on the cooperative.